Six guy, he a visionary.
There's one thing about trials, it's uncertainty. You don't know what's going to happen. So you got to beat 4 counts. If you don't beat them, what will happen is, under this A and C recidivist statute, I have to, under the law, sentence you to the maximum sentence. And then whatever I sentence you to, you serve to the door. That's not anything I have any discretion over. It's not anything because I don't like you or because of what you're being charged with or whatever. Those have nothing to do with anything. That's what the state of Georgia, the legislature has mandated that I sentence you to. So one of the things a plea does is you know what you're getting. It caps your exposure. So, and what the state's telling you today is if you take the plea today, this is what you're going to get, and this is what I probably sentence you to, and you're done. You got to decide that for yourself. You can't be worried about any of these other folks that are attached to this indictment, because a plea is individual to that particular person for those particular reasons that he or she feels is of best interest to them.
Yeah, that was then, but this is now.
Be allowed to withdraw his guilty plea on count 30, and the state shall agree to null pros count 30. The special conditions of the sentence, as outlined in Section 3, are that defendant shall abide in full by each and all of the terms of this negotiated agreement. Defendant's failure to abide by any term of this agreement shall constitute a violation of the agreement. Defendant shall testify truthfully about all matters relating to this case upon which he is questioned at any trial or judicial proceeding stemming from the facts alleged in this indictment. In accordance with testifying truthfully about all matters relating to this case, defendant acknowledges that each and all of the statements contained within the defendant's factual acknowledgments section of this agreement are true. Defendant shall testify truthfully about each statement contained within defendant's factual acknowledgments and any matters related to this case when asked to do so in any proceeding related to the facts alleged in this indictment. Defendant shall possess no guns unless his right to do so is restored. Defendant shall commit no criminal acts. Defendant shall submit to random drug screenings by the Department of Community Supervision and any agency designated by the court in this case. Should the defendant test positive for any Schedule 1, 2, or 3 drug, defendant shall within 30 days of said positive test undergo drug rehabilitation as designated by the court or the Department of Community Supervision and shall successfully complete said rehabilitation program. Defendant relinquishes any Fifth Amendment right related to any statement contained within defendant's factual acknowledgments contained within this plea agreement. Section 4, defendant's factual acknowledgments. Have you initialed each and all of the defendant's factual acknowledgments contained within Section 4 of this document?
Yes, ma'am.
And is that initial AS your initial?
Yes, ma'am.
The factual acknowledgments are as follows. Number 1, Young Slime Life, aka YSL, is an organization made up of 3 or more members or associates who share common identifiers that include, but are not limited to, colors, hand signals, and terminology, who have committed crimes intended to increase the notoriety, street credibility, and reputation of YSL. Number 2, defendant has been a member and or associate of YSL since 2012. Number 3, while associated with YSL and to support and express loyalty to YSL, defendant and co-defendant Demikion Garlington and Quindarius Zachary appeared in a video with another person, AS, where defendant brandished a weapon used in a drive-by shooting, and where on behalf of YSL, defendant threatened to harm a person named Kel, a rival gang member, who had begun a relationship with defendant's ex-girlfriend. Number 4, on or about April 28, 2015, as reflected in Fulton County Indictment 15SC 138994, defendant and fellow YSL associates Demekion Garlington and Quindarius Zachary committed a drive-by shooting using the firearm defendant wielded in the video referenced in Part 3 of this section, targeting family members of a rival gang. Number 5, defendant and his fellow YSL associates committed the drive-by shooting referenced in sections 3 and 4 above on behalf of YSL and to increase the notoriety, reputation, and fear of YSL. Number 6, defendant admitted committing and was convicted of aggravated assault and participation in criminal street gang activity, among other charges, for his participation in the drive-by shooting referenced in sections 3, 4, and 5 above. Number 7, defendant was told by another YSL associate that immediately after the murder of Donovan Thomas Jr., YSL associates met at the McDonald's on Cleveland Avenue in Atlanta, Georgia, to discuss the murder. Number 8, defendant personally knows that one or more YSL associates committed the murder of Donovan Thomas Jr. on behalf of YSL. Number 9, on January the 10th, 2015, after the murder of Donovan Thomas Jr., defendant and other YSL associates gathered at the home of Jeffrey Williams, aka Young Thug, who gave defendant and other YSL associates cash money to lay low. Number 10, defendant has personal knowledge that on January 10, 2015, after the murder of Donovan Thomas Jr., YSL associates traveled to Miami, Florida with co-defendant and YSL founder Jeffrey Williams, aka Young Thug. Number 11, defendant did not murder Donovan Thomas Jr. and was not a party to the crime. Number 12, defendant did not murder Shamel Drinks and was not a party to the crime. Number 13, defendant cannot truthfully assert that the persons charged in this indictment with the murder of Donovan Thomas Jr. are not guilty of the murder, and defendant will make no attempt at trial, prior to trial, or after trial to exonerate the persons charged in this indictment with the murder of Donovan Thomas Jr. Number 14, the gas station at 151 Cleveland Avenue, Atlanta, Georgia, is one of multiple locations where YSL associates sell drugs and do not allow other gangs to operate. Number 15, the gas station at 221 Cleveland Avenue, Atlanta, Georgia, is another location where YSL associates sell drugs and do not permit other gangs to operate. Number 16, defendant has personal knowledge that he and other members or associates of YSL have either participated in or directly committed at least one of the following crimes in order to increase the notoriety and reputation of YSL: murder, armed robbery, aggravated assault, attempted murder, theft, illegal gun possession, and illegal drug possession and sales. Mr. Sledge, have you had an opportunity to go over each one of the defendant's factual acknowledgments and make corrections where necessary?
Yes.
And do you now acknowledge under oath that each of the factual acknowledgments that you have initialed in this section are true and correct and accurate to the best of your ability?
Yes, ma'am.
Part 5 of this plea agreement, Your Honor, states that defendant's sentencing acknowledgments are as follows. Defendant understands fully that if he violates any provision or any special condition of this plea agreement, the district attorney can and will use the contents of this document and agreement during any judicial proceeding. Defendant understands fully that if he violates any provision or any special condition of this plea agreement, his probation for this sentence may be revoked in its entirety, and the district attorney will recommend that defendant serve any remaining portion of this sentence in confinement at the Georgia Department of Corrections or prison. Number 3, defendant understands fully that any violation of any provision or of any special condition of this plea agreement shall result in defendant being sentenced on count 30 of this indictment, and the district attorney will recommend that the defendant serve the maximum sentence allowed by law. Number 4, defendant understands fully that if prior to the conclusion of the initial trial of this case, defendant fails or refuses to testify to any fact that he acknowledges in this plea agreement, such failure or refusal nullifies any promise made by the district attorney to null pros count 30 of this indictment. Number 5, defendant understands fully that defendant's violation of any provision or of any special condition of this plea agreement prior to the conclusion of the initial trial of this case shall nullify any promise made by the district attorney to null pros count 30 of this indictment and may result in defendant being, and Your Honor, there is a typo that is in this document. It's the word should be being, and it's spelled B-E-G-I-N. I'm going to ask that defendant just strike through and initial that word, B-E-G-I-N to B-E-I-N-G.
Strike through. Change it to E. And then initial right there.
And Mr. Sledge, is that your initial above the strike through of the word began to change it to being?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And may result in defendant being sentenced to serve as much as 35 years of confinement in the Georgia Department of Corrections or prison. Number 6, defendant understands fully that no promises, agreements, or conditions have been made other than those set forth in this document. Mr. Sledge, are these your initials on each section under defendant's sentencing acknowledgments?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Sledge, do you agree that the following statement is one that you have read, fully understood, and signed your name acknowledging? I, Antonio Sledge, have read and carefully reviewed this agreement. I have reviewed and corrected where necessary for accuracy each statement contained in defendant's factual acknowledgments, and I acknowledge the truth and accuracy of each and every statement listed therein. I fully understand this agreement, and I've had an opportunity to discuss this agreement and each of its provisions with my attorney, Mr. Derek Wright. No promises other than those contained in this document have been made to me in furtherance of this agreement. I freely, knowingly, and voluntarily enter into this agreement without force, threat, or coercion. Is that the statement that you acknowledged in this agreement?
Yeah, ma'am.
And is that the statement to which you signed your name underneath?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, the state tenders as evidence State's Exhibit 1AS.
No. Any objection? States 1AS is admitted for purposes of plea.
Mr. Sledge, how do you plead to count to the charge of conspiracy to violate the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act as alleged in count 1 of indictment 22SC 183572?
Guilty.
And how do you plead to count 30 of this indictment 22SC 183572, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon previously convicted of a felony involving the use or possession of a firearm?
Guilty.
Is this guilty plea freely and voluntarily given with the full knowledge of the charges against you?
Yeah, ma'am.
So he about to get up there and talk about multiple shootings. The murder of Donovan Thomas, a.k.a. Big Nut, a.k.a. Nut, a.k.a. Mr. Fonnie, Miss Fonnie, Auntie Fonnie, Willis Lover. Bruh, let me help y'all out. There's a couple of things that weren't said in there that look good for Thug and look bad for Thug. One of the questions that has to be answered is, A, how did you know that Young Thug gave them money in direct correlation of shooting Donovan Thomas? Meaning this, how do you know that he gave money to them for killing them? What was said? Where's your proof? All right, cool. Then, when he say lay low, is that because now he has knowledge of a murder that happened and they told him? And he like, let me figure this out. Y'all lay low. So there's that. One of the key things that has been included in these plea agreements with Tick and with Sledge is, well, Mounk Tounk, is that you can't exonerate anybody, which means they're not supposed to ask you questions. And I'm just talking about the prosecution is not supposed to ask you questions to basically say, well, here's the 3 people that were involved, but this 4th person wasn't. It's supposed to leave off the air of the 4th person is involved some way, somehow. The 4th person being Young Thug. It is a big possibility. I don't know. I don't talk to none of these cats. I don't want to talk to none of these cats or nothing like that. There's a big possibility that Young Thug panicked and got his people up out of there for fear of retribution. Now, you can say, oh, man, that's BS and all that stuff and everything like that. That's cool, but can you prove it? Now, with that being said, there is this article out there where it said that Big Nut said, man, Young Thug had them kill me. There is that does exist. Now, how true that is, I don't know, but dying declarations are 100% admissible in court. So the question then becomes, what now? Because at the end of the day, bruh, all this looks bad for Thug. It all does, bro. It just does. And I'm going to be fair, square, obvious, and honest. I don't care what I said before. We got, day 24 popping up? Really, day 25, but it's day 24 popping up. And, yeah, it looks like that the defense is up 23-1. It looks that way. But, nigga, this right here, just like how we used to, how they scored in whatever that show Steve Harvey is in, you know how they scored and they be like, hey, this round is worth double rounds and bonus rounds and double points and all that. Yeah, that's looking like this right here. So we'll see, bruh. But I ain't gonna hold you. This looks B-A-double-D, bruh. Because at the end of the day, the main thing of this conspiracy and what it's supposed to do is figure out that Thug had Big Nut killed and that niggas was sliding for YSL. All the drug dealing, all the beating up people and all that don't really matter. That doesn't tie it in. But this conspiracy part, like I said, all he has to do is get found of one conspiracy. So this is really them just doing their homework. Because really, how the case should have focused was that, hey, bruh, we're going to go ahead and target the money, a.k.a. King Slime, a.k.a. Young Thug, and then we're going to get him up out of here. How do we do that? We find anybody that was around him that got any association to do with YSL, and we're going to go ahead and pin their ass to these charges. Now, one of the worst things about this thing is that I believe like 7 of these dudes never even met Young Thug. So what you're trying to say is, well, yeah, he's the head guy, but there's also 2 other guys. And though we don't know Young Thug, we know we work for Young Thug. Like a lot of y'all who work for Walmart or Rite Aid or whatever, y'all don't know the owners. A lot of y'all who work for all these other stores and stuff like that, y'all may know a general manager, but you don't know the owner. So that's how they're trying to charge it. I'll be fair though, bro. Something ain't cooking in the kitchen, bro. Because part of that agreement that was said that sticks out like a sore thumb is how you can't exonerate somebody who had nothing to do with it, which means they basically had to come through and then paint it as though everybody is included and everybody is involved, even if you know 100% this dude had nothing to do with it, which in my mind is like, bruh, are y'all going to try to impeach him once he says, or if he says, yeah, nah, he didn't have anything to do with it. It was these 3 people. And mind you, how the hell this nigga 41 looking like he goddamn 19? And then you got Tick up there looking terrible. This nigga Mounk Tounk looked like he 19 years old, bro. I thought this was a little dude. And then she was like, what's your age? She's like, 41. What? Like, god damn, bro. What you been eating? You a fat nigga like me, bro. We gotta stick together. But after this, nigga, I'm gonna run if I ever see you in real life. I'm finna show these wheels with this Nike Tech and this Killer Clan hoodie, which I own. We ain't got nothing to do with no Masons, no none of that. I don't know nothing about them, don't want to know nothing about them. I own this logo, by the way. If you want to buy one, let me know something. Nike Tech, bro. But yeah, it's ugly, man. Because at the end of the day, what are we doing exactly here? Why are we here? We're here to convict Young Thug and anybody that's around him with YSL. Now, the question it becomes, what about the other members? Well, only 2 people had deals like this. See, these deals were different, right? If you go look at, like I keep pointing to y'all, I point out Duke's all the time because Duke was able to say, hold on, this, and this. Nigga, this ain't it. I'm not signing that. Go back and rework it. All these niggas had this opportunity and they decided not to do it. Now, what Gunna try to do, because I know you're gonna be like, well, what about Gunna? What about Gunna? Gunna try to say there is a YSL, a gang, and then there's YSL, the label. Now, what Gunna couldn't say is that Jeffrey is a part of YSL, the label, and that this nigga and that nigga is a part of YSL, the gang. Even if he did, that would still be snitching because you're not supposed to be doing that any goddamn ways. Because basically what you're saying is, yep, there's a conspiracy. Yep, that's right there. Yep, in my black tee. Yep, in my white tee. That nigga right there is YSL likely. That nigga right there killed somebody. And he did it for YSL. And yeah, now they all a conspiracy. So, bro, at the end of the day, bro, this is bad, bro. Do I feel bad for Young Thug? In a sense, yeah, and then in a sense, no. Because the thing about niggas who was in the streets and they start getting their bread and they start operating in more of a positive space, you got to let certain things go, bro. The same niggas that'll protect you is the same ones that'll put you in a situation. It just is what it is. These niggas right here are some of the worst, even Tick. Because at one point in time, Tick had the opportunity to go back and revise a whole bunch of stuff, but he knew he wouldn't be getting out. And I'm going to tell y'all, without these 2 testimonies, this case is really bad. Y'all don't have anybody. See, the ability of people to do stuff in secrecy and in silence means that they don't know what's going on. They had to paint the picture. They had to create the illustration. And if they can't do that, then you win. But if they somehow get your words to do that, then you all lose. So, I don't know, bro. This right here is ugly. Now, what could Mounk Tounk do? Because some of y'all probably like, when I ask you the hood lawyer, what would you advise him to do? I would go in there. One, I wouldn't even be in that situation because I'm not signing no goddamn plea deal that's throwing anybody under the bus. But when I did get in trouble, I was by myself, so it wasn't I did get snitched on though. It was 3 dudes. I'm not gonna tell on them. I'm not gonna go pull up my juvenile paperwork and tell on them. But I had some niggas snitch on me. But either way it go, what can Mounk Tounk do? He can go in there and get his ass locked up. Go in there and get his ass locked up. And literally say, you know what? I was coerced into all of this. And the reason why is because I really wanted to get home. I thought that I did my time. I did my crime, I did my time, and I didn't know that this right here was going to affect these people. I really just wanted to get out. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, will he do that? Hell nah, because his ass would still be in jail and fighting this charge. But I'm going to be honest with you. You don't have to get on the stand and telling yourself when you're in court. You do have to get on the stand and telling yourself if you agreed to do it. So with that being said, bro, it's ugly. This is worse than Tick. By a mile. It ain't even close. Because Tick never talked about any drive-bys, any shootings or anything like that. He talked about stuff that he did. Yeah, I was there selling drugs. Anybody can go sell drugs on Cleveland. I'm not a real blood. I didn't get jumped in. I just started claiming blood. That right there, all right, cool. That, But this, share to keep your people aware, subscribe, turn on the bell, stay notified. Good morning.
What's really hood when I'm through the hood? Nothing be said, we got it overstood. The team fed, yeah, it's really good. Put that on everything, bro, you're never good. What's really hood when I'm through the hood? Nothing be said, we got it overstood.